Well, welcome to Martini Time. Here it is, 5 o'clock again on Monday, a beautiful day in Blackstone, the center of the earth. But then you two are the center of the world. So, today's been a day of renewal for me in insignificant but synchronicitous ways. I'm looking here, I need to fix my hair. So, the first thing that happened was, I got updated my iPhone and iPad to OS 11, and it really works fast. And then my father's watch, isn't that beautiful? It says on here, it's got EGC on the back, and this was given to my father in 1929. When he graduated from Annapolis, and the little top piece had broken off in my pocket, and my wife just found it in the laundry, so we put it back. So it's always good to get my father's watch back up in working order. And then the third thing that was also synchronicitous was that I answer questions on Quora, and there was one question about submarine life, and I was describing my life on the USS Kubera 347, and it's a diesel boat, which I was on from 1958 to 61. It was 3.5 years I was on that boat, stationed in Norfolk. We were in an anti-submarine fleet, and I was a sonarman. So I would sit up in a little sonar shack in the front, and I'd be listening to ships and destroyers trying to find us, you see. And so I got out of the Navy after 5 years. And so I was using, so a friend commented on my Quora answers where I had been describing my my life on the submarine, but I describe it metaphorically, as I always do. So my life, it's almost like a past life to me as a submarine was also a metaphor for my life as a meditator. Run silent, run deep. Ooh, you go in to meditate. You run silent, you run deep, you see. And also I was contrasting the difference between the undersea boat with the surface ships, and how life on those two are different. Your life on your surface ships, the ships go on a fleet, and they're afraid of the water. They don't want to get in that water. And they're very, the Navy, particularly the surface ships, is very, it's a hierarchy of order, and everybody's in a compartment, and all you know is your separate compartment. The engineer doesn't know anything about radar or anything, doesn't know anything about you just know your specialty. But on a submarine, it's a different paradigm. It's a different, it's a all for one and one for all. So on a submarine, you have to learn every job, every valve, every button on the whole boat. So wherever you are, if something happens, you can react as the people who live in that compartment. So you have to qualify, and you get a pair of dolphins when you qualify. When you learn the whole boat and pass the test, you see. So anyway, I was my answer to this. So this guy says, you ought to write a book about that. And I responded. I said, yeah, I thought about that. And so then I went on Facebook, and Facebook had locked and said somebody had hacked your password, and you have to have a new password. So I got a new password, but my old password was Kubera 347. My boat 347. So I tell you not now because it's no longer in use. But anyway, these little examples of synchronicity, and we all have them, when suddenly exterior facts line up with interior process, what's going on interiorly, and the outside lines up. And we always think, whoa, a miracle. Or really, what are the chances of that happening? So it's kind of like figurative. Well, it's just chance, Is it really? Is the outside world and the inside world really out of sync? Are they really separate? Are they really at war with each other, hostile? You see? Is there no interrelationship between me, and your inside, my mind, myself, and the external world out there? That's the assumption we get in culture. Culture, and I've been writing about this for a week now, so I hope you are following my talks if you're interested in this thread, in this investigation, in this detective work, you see. Because I am, and I invite you to share with me, I'm on the scent of culture. What is it? Why is it? Why are we in conflict? Why are we divided? Why are we dissatisfied? Why are we despairing? Why are we anxious, fearful? Why is it all screwed up? Why is that, you see? So we need to look into it. But you can't look into it, which most of us do. We just look into, it's Trump's fault. No, it's Obama's fault. Hillary did it. It's some fault, some blame. You see, but all of that's in culture. See, the great deception of culture is that it makes us believe that we're outside of it, so we can judge it and blame it and fix it like it's a car. Well, you can fix culture. You can elect that guy instead of that idiot. Or you have these programs, or have this policy, or pass this law, or get this technology, or get rid of that technology, or have that war, or whatever. It's all to fix culture. It's all to stop. It's all under the illusion that it's possible to bring the outside and the inside together sometime in the future. So you kind of like meet there, you see, but you never get there. So what divides us, you see? And I'm looking into culture as a culture, as the Western culture, the one we live in, the fishbowl we live in, has an operating system that divides, and it begins in childhood. So this morning and yesterday, but particularly this morning, I was writing about the cultural divide that starts with childhood. When the child is separated from the mother, right off the bat in the hospital. Culture, which is a hospital, comes in and intervenes in the natural bonding of the mother and the child. Snatches the infant out right when it's born, cuts the umbilical cord prematurely, sticks it in a basket with hot lights and people with no covers over their faces, and the mother's drugged, and then eventually maybe the infant's brought in. Now, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it was pretty severe. And then the separation right there. So the birthing and the bonding of the mother and the child are broken from the get-go. And then she doesn't nurse. She gets a bottle, so the infant doesn't get the natural breast milk that is necessary for the structure and the triggering of its immune system, you see. And all of this is interrupted by this culture that comes in and says, Father knows best. Culture knows best. Let the doctor do it. And there's a revolution against that. If you go out and get vitamin pills, you're part of that. If you go out and try to get organic food or natural grown food, you're part of that. You don't want cultural processed food. You don't want industrial food. There's a great movement, you see, to retake our lives from culture, which has led us to believe that it knows best. And this really happened in the 50s. Well, it was before that, but it really got locked in the 50s when we became so powerful because of our technology and our war and our culture, you see. We beat the Nazis on one hand and we beat the Japs with the other. It's like a superhero fighting a sword fight, like Earl Flynn, fighting two enemies with one hand in one hand. America was a superhero. Yes. And of course, that's when superhero comics came in too, you see. But yeah, so then, we found out we weren't so super, but we believed it. And then in the 60s, we began to see through the game. And that's what split the culture. So I've been talking about that because we've been watching Ken Burns and the Vietnam War as the great wound in America. And if you go to the memorial, the Vietnamese memorial, what is it? It's a wound. And the veterans are still wounded. They're still recovering. They still can't. They're still left wounded, you see. And politically, we're still trying to get rid of that wound. So I'm really curious about investigating what it is. And you really have to start you really have to start with an empty mind, like a detective. I don't know who did it. I just want to look at the clues. Just the facts, man. I just want to see the clues. I don't want to prejudge, because all prejudgment comes from culture. Culture will say, hey, psst, 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 Trump did it. Or, psst, psst, Obama did it, Obama did it. Oh, yeah, okay, so we get together and run off, or Hillary did it, and go off and burn her, So culture tells us who to blame, because it's all part of culture. And it's not like culture is some malevolent Satan. It's just the organism we live in. We have to live in a culture, or else you go live in a cave by yourself in Alaska. Human beings live in culture. It's called society. The family is a culture, it's a society, and the family is enculturated by its culture, and when the child is born into the family, it transmits the culture it's born in. So you learn from childhood how to behave in your culture, what's right and what's wrong. It's unconscious, it's not planned, it just happens. That's what children do. They eat the whole parent, culture and all, conscious and unconscious, good intentions and bad intentions. The child eats the whole thing, no leftovers. So if a parent has good intentions, it's also going to transmit its bad intentions. If the parent says one thing and does another, it transmits both. It just doesn't transmit what it tells the child to do. It transmits what the parent does. The doing and the talking, if it's split, the Bible calls that hypocrisy. If you think you're doing one thing but doing another, that's being transmitted to the child. But our culture is doing that, you see. Our culture is saying one thing but doing another. And this is a constant problem with politics. This is a constant problem in media today. And we listen to Morning Joe and CNN and Fox constantly, because what are they talking about? They're talking about the inconsistency between what government and politicians and presidents are saying they're doing and what they're actually doing, you see. And we're just like little children telling the brother and sister, say, well, Daddy said this, but he did that. That doesn't fit. You see, I caught him. I caught Daddy in a lie. He said this, but he was doing that. Now that's a break in trust. That's rather traumatic for a child, and it's still traumatic for us. We're kind of like children in culture. We're kind of like the sons and daughters of culture. The culture is the parent. And we expect the culture in its institutions and its government to be truthful, to not be hypocritical, to say what it means. And we're always looking for the authentic person. We're looking for the John Wayne. We're looking for the pure person. We're looking for the one who doesn't speak with a forked tongue. We're looking for the purity, for the original man. We're looking for a savior. Search for authenticity. We're all searching for authenticity because we feel split. We feel divided. We feel out of sync. You see. And when we get a little synchronicity, it's, oh, wow, a miracle. Just think of, George Steinfeld, Costanza in Seinfeld. He was always so excited when the green lights were green for him, or when he got a parking spot. He was like, yes, the universe, I'm in alignment with the universe. God loves me. But then the next thing it would, whatever, you know what I mean. But a lot of movies bring this up. You know, when everything's in sync and all the lights are green and you're in this zone, where everything works for you. Oh, it's so great. It's so miraculous. This is the way it should be all the time. But then it ends, you see, because culture comes back. So we have these little windows out of culture when everything's working. Or you get these people who start a new business and they have an idea and they're focused on it and it's a single idea and they're passionately involved and that's all they do is create this idea and finally they launch it and everything works and just bam, 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 all the opportunities fold and it's like a domino thing and everybody and suddenly the money's coming in and everything, you see. And so we all have these stories, you know, and then you bottle that and you sell it. You know, so everybody's selling how to be authentic. Everybody's selling how to be true. Everybody's selling how to get back in touch with your original nature. Even Trump sold it. Restore America. What does that mean? Restore yourself to your original harmony with the external world, where you and the world are one. Atonement. That's a spiritual promise. That's a spiritual promise. Atonement's in the Bible. That's the kingdom of heaven, where you are one with the Father, with the world. Jesus says, I and the Father are one. He wasn't talking about some old guy in the sky in the Sistine Chapel with a beard up there, or the guy up in the Sistine Dome of Stephen Colbert, you know, when he talks to God and God's up there with a big beard. No, Jesus wasn't talking about that Father. The Father is a metaphor for the world. So, I and the world are one, Jesus was saying, which means I have no boundaries, no separation between me and the world. I'm in the world, I'm in culture, but I'm not of it. How can you do that, you see? Well, you have to find out. The people say, well, follow Jesus. You know, Jesus is the way. No, people don't know what that means. They think it's copying something. No, it's discovering something. And it's being open. It's dropping all of your assumptions. It's dropping all of your knowledge, all of your knowing, all of your culture. Culture is the known. So we have to drop what we know, the beliefs and the opinions, the philosophies and the books and the teachers and the authorities, everything. Everything has to be questioned. Is it true? I don't know. Is it true? Let me look. Does it feel true? So truth is felt. Okay, now that brings us back to Vietnam. So, it brings us back to 1968 and the Tet Offensive. Suddenly, with the Tet Offensive and the pictures that came out of Vietnam, it didn't look like we were winning. It didn't feel like we were winning. So there was a disjunct, a separation between what the government was saying we were doing. We're winning, we're winning, we're winning. And I look at the pictures and it doesn't feel like it. So I begin to doubt that. That's the crack in the cosmic egg. That's when you begin to doubt your daddy and your mommy. That's when you begin to question if they're telling you the truth or not. You see. So a lot of movies and books and everything are about that very moment of questioning, and it's quite a shock. It's quite a shock. Maybe the first one is when we find out Santa Claus is dead. I always think this is kind of like a, well, I forgot to punch my clock again. So I don't know how long I've been talking. Anyway, I always think like Santa Claus is kind of like a cultural circumcision. The child's innocence is just, oh, and the parents love it. Oh, yes, Santa Claus. And we're just going to feed that kid, and he's going to get so hyped up. And it starts now. It starts in Halloween. It starts before Halloween. It's already in the stores, the hype on Santa Claus. And the kids are going to be, oh, I got to have this, and what am I going to get? And Santa Claus is God, and he's going to give you what you want. And you build up all this expectation and hope and dreams and everything. And finally you get to the Christmas morning and you get the package. And then you look around and say, is that it? But anyway, you believe in Santa Claus. And then maybe when you're 5 or 6 or 7 and you're running around the street, you find out Santa Claus isn't real. And I remember when I asked my mother, lip trembling, is it true that Santa Claus isn't real? You know, so it's kind of like a circumcision of innocence. And there was a headline I remember, I guess it was from the 30s, maybe 40s, but Shoeless Joe was a big idol of the kids because he didn't wear shoes. He was a baseball player who was Shoeless Joe, and he got caught taking a bribe. And the headline was, say it ain't so, Shoeless Joe. You know, the hero, what I believed in, my beloved, my lover, my soulmate, broke the trust. You know, and that happened with culture. Culture, government broke the trust. And we've been afraid to fall in love again since then. We've been afraid to trust government since then. Don't trust the government. Don't trust Hillary. Don't trust Trump. Don't trust any of them. They're all crooks. And don't trust the media. Don't trust anybody. But who are you going to trust? It's not like there's somebody else other than culture. It's like we're in this womb. Who are you going to trust? Well, you have to trust yourself. But in order to do that, you have to extract yourself from culture. You have to figure out what the implant of culture that's been planted in you, like the Manchurian Candidate. You have to, and this is what mindfulness and meditation and yoga and spiritual study and the Dharma and non-dualism and all of that is about. It's about deconstructing the cultural implant from your awareness so you don't identify with it and run with it and get divided by it, because culture divides the mind. That's its operating system. So if you want to be whole, if you want to be authentic, if you want to be your true nature, if you want to know who you are, you have to begin an investigation. You have to be curious. And you can't do it by blaming other people. That's the first stop sign. Don't blame. Don't judge. I mean, even the Bible, Jesus tells you that. Judgment is a stop sign that stops inquiry. Judgment is a stop sign that stops curiosity. When you judge, you know, and that's the end of it. He did it. Let's wrap it up. Case closed. Okay, thanks for dropping in. I'll see you in the morning.